what a common trend and a common theme among people who have died and come back, and they've gone to the realm of light and love and unity. The point of this human experience is to learn. It's the Earth School. And also part of what we do in the life review, a really important critical common theme in the life review, is we understand what we did and said from the perspective of others we impacted. So it seems like we experience time and cause and effect. Mm-hmm. So we can learn how we're part of a larger being, we're part of a larger existence, and what we do to others, we're going to feel like we're doing it to ourselves.
About how all things are related, not just humans, okay? And that's all encoded in the language of those people and the symbols, right? So then that you have almost universal by at least, I would say 20,000, but maybe as early as 50,000 BC. And between that range, we're talking about universal elements of animism. And that's it. That's the last level of universal experience. Everything past then becomes stratified culturally.
Can reform, again, your own identity and the collective identity in such a way to even use that word. And I think that the methods and the inspirations that they had in how they framed collective shamanism was accurate, and it was about what we are talking about and what Angela just said about the existential crisis in Game B that came through when people realized, okay, wait a minute, and am I working on myself, or am I working on the collective, or can I work on myself without the collective, and vice versa? And one thing that I wanted to paint just as a felt sense of, so I started artistically with the Telecatron project, calling it a solar pirate. And the solar pirate was basically somebody who could see the abundance that we actually have in all of our opportunities realistically, and then coerce people to lean more into the abundant side of things rather than that lack. And one felt sense example I can give, recently in Chicago, there's been these mass uprisings of like teenagers basically just completely taking over the streets, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Takeovers, yeah.
Here's the problem is that, you know, a lot of them are out there just smoking weed and racing cars and doing hoodlum shit. But the point is, when we think back to what we were talking about the online spaces and saying, if I don't like socialism, but I've never actually read about it, but my buddy has read all about it, and I just choose not to go in his dimension, what a weird space it is to not step into that dimension. That's a click away. It's just one click away. And the bizarre thing about these kids in Chicago is like, when they're organizing and they don't even realize it. You know, they're collectively moving, and they're doing it just to get high and just to, you know, mess with the parents basically and to defy the police. But they're one step away from a completely revolutionary act where they could do anything. They could organize in the way that like Benjamin's talking about. And they're one step away from, like I said, whatever culturally or whatever artistically the influence is on them to say, hey, you guys all have phones and you could organize to get high and screw around the street. Why couldn't you organize to vote or do something else? So, like I said, I'm just saying that to show the more of the felt sense, but also the difficulty in what we talk about when we talk about the individual versus the collective, and not wanting to disrupt and not wanting to step out and
you're attracted to certain things, but you don't know anything yet. You've got minimal literacy about it, but you've got a hunger, and you're bringing all that energy into a space, right? And you just bring tons of erotic energy and just barely bringing into that animus level. I'm smoking weed and I'm starting to think ideas and I'm starting to connect and relate to lots of things. And then you're saying, well, spontaneously, if the right things were fed into it, knowledge, structure, you could create something that then grows and even possibly emerges as an institution of bureaucracy, which is exactly how the Black Spades started.
You're continuing to assume the worst is going to happen. And when that happens, everything just starts to get shittier for everybody. Like the U.S. now has 1.5 trillion proposed to go towards the military. It's like, that is a massive amount of money to go towards it. Why? Because of multipolar traps and global hegemony and all that kind of stuff. we could actually, in theory, have a world where we don't have war anymore. The only way to transcend war, though, is to transcend game theoretic dynamics, multipolar traps, arms races, assuming that you have to always be prepared for somebody who's going to default. It's really difficult to ever achieve that without some sort of global surveillance, because you have to like check and make sure that, you know, Iran isn't secretly building nuclear weapons and they're just going to ruin it for everybody, right? Like if everybody's like, yeah, let's put away all of our weapons, let's disband our militaries, we're not going to have war anymore. Then the issue is all it takes is one person defaulting on that in secret, and then it ruins it for everybody, and they become the new global hegemony, totalitarian power. And so it's almost like that's too costly a risk to take. So then this global collectivism becomes, as you were saying initially, it's like a risk thing. It's too risky to assume that we could all actually ever possibly choose to not be at war.
Yeah, I could borrow something that you have to share with me, but I'm going to put it back in my framework, such as the framework I just gave you guys at the beginning of the conversation, where it's like, well, this is about me, it's my conversation, so we're all going to play Robert's game and Robert's framework, right? And then so it happens is a lot of people try to stake the flag down and be like, you know, come into my Substack, you know, join my community, you know. Translate your words into ours. Like we want to use our language, you know.